Hi, I'm Dickson. Welcome back to our discussion on the 17 different types of structure. In our earlier discussions, we said that there were 17 different types, but they all fit into one of three categories. First was bars, and we covered all of the different types of bars and discussed how to fish them. And then next, in the second category, were humps, underwater islands. We just finished that study, and today we're going to begin the study of what's remaining, the third category, which is man-made structure. Now, man-made structure includes dams, causeways, levees, wing dams, underwater road beds, underwater railroad grades, and I think I mentioned causeways. If I didn't, dams and causeways. Anyway, there's a myriad of these man-made structures that exist. And when you add to that in all of the man-made reservoirs, there's also the bars, also humps, also some saddles, and then add to that we have the main river channel, which is the home of the fish in a man-made reservoir. And then we have all the side feeder cuts and all the break lines that are involved with the main channels and the side cuts, and we add all of that together. So at first glance, it appears as though man-made reservoirs may be the most difficult place to fish. But yet in my early days, traveling around the country and doing clinics and getting people's attention, just like Buck did back in the day, we had to go fishing, and we had to fish in local waters. And most of the time, in most all of the areas where I was promoting, to try to get their attention and try to fill up the clinics and so on and so forth, I found myself fishing local man-made reservoirs that were real close to the city limits, or certainly real close driving distance to the general population. So in order to get the publicity that I needed, many of you already know this, I went in and see the local newspaper outdoor editors. And I made this statement to them. I did it for years. I said, take me to a reservoir, any reservoir, you call it, one that I've never seen before, and within 1 hour we'll be catching fish. What I told them was, I have all of this information that I want to share with people, but they don't know how important it is, and you don't know either. And I know from a professional standpoint, you probably give me a little 1 inch, or a 2 inch little shout that I'm doing a clinic somewhere at the Holiday Inn. But that's not what I want. I want you to be excited and tell your readers that no matter what else is going on, cancel it. Don't miss this clinic. I want you to be excited about it. Only way I think I can do that is to take you fishing. And I know you get plenty of offers to go on fishing trips. After all, you're the outdoor editor. So why should you go with me? I'll tell you why. Because I'm guaranteeing you within 1 hour, you go with me, you pick the lake, I've never seen it before, you go fishing with me, and in 1 hour we'll be catching fish, big fish. That's the guarantee I'll make to you. Well, most of these writers, they didn't believe for 1 second that I could fulfill that and actually pull it off. So their curiosity was such that they decided they would go with me. And I always liked the reservoirs, and I'll tell you why. Like I said, at first glance, it might seem that there's so much to think about. It's, crazy. But here's the good thing about reservoirs. You can't fish a structure until you can find one. That's why most guys are confused so often when they're fishing these big flatland reservoirs and these big, huge reservoirs like out in Texas. Hey, guys launch your boat, they don't even know where to begin. It's just nothing but water, 100,000 acres of water. Well, there's a shortcut to success on reservoirs. I'm going to give it to you right off in the beginning of our discussion. Dams and causeways, mid-lake causeways. Why is that so? Well, we know 2 good reasons why. First, we know it leads all the way because that water goes up to that dam somewhere. The river channel ends up at that dam. So we know it leads shallows to the deep. We can see all this rocky riprap, the face of the dam. It leads all the way. It'll always have fish. And then we have these mid-lake causeways that stretch all the way across the lake. And at some point, they're crossing over the old river channel, which is the home of the fish, And we have all that rocky riprap kind of stuff along the face of the causeway. So here's two structures that I don't need a depth sounder. I don't need a contour map. All I need is a road map. I can see where the dam is, see where the causeway is. It's a shortcut to fishing success on big reservoirs. So I know by making that statement to a writer, within 1 hour we'll be catching fish. If it's a reservoir, I say that. Within 1 hour. And it's never failed me. Always been able to produce. And the reason that I make that statement is I know I don't have, well, let me back up. If you're a informed modern day fisherman, coupled with all of the new electronics that are available, and you are somewhat skilled in the area of map and interpretation, it's not hard for you to find these underwater targets that I talk about. It's not that hard. You can do it. But so many people have a hard time with that area they're fishing, and it's the most important. The thing is, we can't catch a fish if we're fishing where there are no fish. And if you're not skilled, you're not at that point yet, why not take my advice and look at something you can see? You don't need electronics. You don't need a depth sounder. You don't need a contour map. All you need is an observation of terrain. There's the dam. There's the causeway. It leads all the way. And in addition to that, when the reservoir is flooded, the two areas that they clean out, this is especially important down in areas of Texas, Oklahoma, those places, big flatland reservoirs, a lot of the timber is left in the lake when they flood it. And it's a nightmare to try to fish. Trees and all over the place. But the dams have always been all cleared out. The causeways, those areas have been cleared out. So we've got structure we can see, visibly see, without all the electronics and all of that, and we know they're clean areas to fish, and we know they lead all the way. Shortcut to success. Now, like you say, there's really no shortcut to success. Well, no shortcut in buying some magic lure or something like that, but there is sort of a shortcut to map and interpretation of structure and where should I go begin my fishing. And we're going to end up talking about all of these different types of man-made structure. But since I'm so zeroed in right now on the dams or the causeways, I'm going to give you a great example of something happened. Quite a few years ago, I was scheduled to do this clinic in Peoria, Illinois. Didn't know much about any of the water around there, but I was scheduled to do this clinic, and the clinic was being held at Bradley University. So as my normal way of operating, and the reason was simple, we never had any money. We didn't have any dough to really advertise. So I go into the newspaper, the Peoria Star, and I meet the outdoor editor. His name was Jack Arisman. And after a little bit of conversation, I found that this guy is a real outdoorsman. I mean, he was a terrific guy, very, very friendly. He was big in Ducks Unlimited, and he was just the all-around sportsman. Loved fishing, loved hunting, and he was real big into conservation and the resources and all of the above. He's just a great guy to talk with. So we ended up talking for quite a while. And I told him I was doing this clinic, and I said, most of the time people will give me an inch or two, just out of professional courtesy. They'll put a blip in their paper that we're doing this clinic. And I said, that's not enough. I said, I appreciate that kind of an effort or that kind of an offer from you. I said, but I've got some material that's really important for your readership to hear. And I know that you don't know that. It's just me telling you. I said, but I'd like to prove to you this is something that I have that your readership is going to want to know about. And there's only one way I can really prove it to you. So here's the deal I'm going to make you. I want you to take me to a reservoir, any reservoir that you choose. One that I've never seen before, because I haven't been around here, I haven't fished around here. Take me to a reservoir that you would like to fish. And I guarantee you, within 1 hour, we'll be catching big fish. He sort of laughed, sort of snickered a little bit, but good-heartedly. He said, man, I don't know anybody can make that kind of a statement. I said, I can make that statement. And I'll tell you why. Fish haven't changed in thousands of years. They've been doing the same thing the same way for thousands of years. A guy by the name of Buck Perry proved that. And I said, you know, that bass down there at your lake, wherever it is, or that walleye, they're no different than the bass that's in Florida or the walleye that's in Michigan. It's the same critter. They always do the same things, no matter where they live, and they don't know where they're living. So since fish are so predictable, I can make that statement. And I promise you, take me up on it. Go fishing with me for a day. So he said, well, I'll tell you what. And I knew I was in business. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, there's a lake. It's a little bit south of here. It's called Rend Lake. And he said, it's a big old reservoir. They flooded it about 10, 12 years ago, something like that. He said, in the beginning, there's a lot of little bass running around. You know, you can get down and catch a lot of little bass, you know. But like most reservoirs, once they become of age, people stop catching fish. And occasionally during the spawning season, there's some fish caught. He said, but recently, over the last couple of years, he said that lake is just, the reputation has gone next to nothing. Nobody's catching fish. He said, I'd like to see you prove that statement. And he did one of these. I'd like to see you prove that statement to me at Rend Lake. I said, hey, cool. When are you able to go? And we set a date for the following day. He said, let's go do it tomorrow. I said, I'm free. I'm ready to go. I said, okay, great. And then he told me where the lake was. It was a bit south. I forget exactly how far it was, but it was a bit south of Peoria. So when we split, we agreed we'd meet at daybreak at Rend Lake. And I said, I'll give you a call tonight and we'll finalize our arrangement. What I was hoping to do was to go get a contour map, see what area of the reservoir I wanted to fish, and then give him a call and say, is there, you know, where are the boat ramps? Where can we meet? So I started driving down south, down to Rend Lake, and he gave me his home phone number. And on the way down, I stopped at every tackle store I came to. Every tackle place, every possibility, every bait shack. I must have stopped 7, 8 places. There was no contour map of Rend Lake. So my ability to read a contour map and circle some spots and go right to it is no longer valid because there's no contour map. So the time I got into a motel down there that night, it was about 8 o'clock at night, and I called him up because I started thinking, boy, I haven't seen this lake, but I'm close. But I'm going to ask him if he has a contour map of it, that he could bring it with him. Well, I called him up. He didn't have a contour map of it. I said, well, that's all right. And I said, I'll call you back in a little bit. So I hung up. Now I really am worried. How the heck am I going to, let me see how I can make this happen. So I went to my van. I got out my big real map, a road map. And I opened it up. I found Rend Lake in the Illinois page, and it was this huge flatland reservoir, probably 25, 30,000 acres. I forget just how big, but it's a big flatland, what we call a flatland 2 reservoir. Well, I know my keys to a flatland like I'm sharing with you this morning. Dam, causeway. I don't need a contour map. I know those 2 spots are going to produce fish. I saw this causeway. As I recall, I haven't looked it up, but I think it's Route 183. So those of you in Illinois get Rend Lake 183 causeway. And then I located the dam. So I called Jack Arisman back. I said, Jack, tell me, do you know, I've located this causeway on the 183, and then I see where the dam is further south. I said, do you know if there's boat ramps in either one of those 2 areas? He said, there's boat ramps in both of those areas. He said, but it would help me out if you chose 183 causeway. It's a shorter drive for me. So I said, okay. 183 causeway, we'll meet at the boat ramp at daybreak. Okay, it's a deal. Flatland 2 reservoir, man-made structure. I'm sitting at the causeway, and I can see where that river channel came through, where it went underneath, you know, the cutout spot where the channel went under. And then as I'm looking across the lake, I'm on the east side looking west. It looked like that causeway run about 3 miles. I think I looked it up later. It's like 3.5 miles. rocky riprap for 3.5 miles on structure that I know holds fish. I don't know exactly where, but I know it leads all the way and it's clean, and that's where we're going to start our fishing. Okay, I'm going to try to make this story a little bit shorter if I can. Many of you know I do a lot of trolling with spoon plugs. It's the finest lure I ever built, and the reason is I can control all different depths with the different sizes of spoon plugs, and I can, especially trolling, I can control all of the depths from 0 with 2 different types of line from 0 to 60 feet. But I always start in the shallows, and especially when you're working rocky riprap and it's a long causeway. There could be some side feeder streams that had come in, or rivers that split out and come in and hit that causeway at some place other than the main river channel. Will always hold fish. So it's trolling water. So I'm starting like I always do in the smallest size spoon plug. I'm only telling you this so you can picture how we're fishing this thing. The smallest size spoon plug is what they call a 500, and it runs from 2 to 4 feet depending on how much line you let out. And then I put a 500 on a trolling rod for jack, and then I put a 400 spoon plug, which runs 4 to 6 feet, on my rod. I'm fishing. I'm trolling this rocky riprap along the causeway. Jack Arisman's lure is on the inside. I'm a little bit deeper. So we're going to check some shallows first, see if we can pop a fish somewhere along here, and then get to working a little bit deeper and so on and so forth. So normal procedure, nothing special. So we launched the boat. I explained to him we're going to be trolling to start. And I explained to him, like I just explained now, about these lures and so on and so forth. And I said, I want you to let out just 10 layers of line. Count the layers on your reel as it goes across, and then lock the reel up and hold on. And I set the drag for him so he couldn't get in trouble. So I started trolling down through there, and he said, man, you're almost hitting the rocks over here. I was, probably that far from the very edge of the face of that causeway. He said, you're so close, man, you're going to run us aground. I said, no, we all right. And started trolling down through there, and we didn't go, okay, I got to get this right. Let's say we went no more than 50 yards. And all of a sudden, he yelled and screamed at me, hey, I'm hung up. I immediately put the boat in neutral, and started reeling in so we could go back and get his lure. And as I turned backwards, I saw this 5-pound bass jumping out of the water. He was hung up all right, a 5-pound largemouth, where he said there hadn't been any fish caught in 2 years. According to him, nobody's talked about anybody catching fish for 2 years. We're not on that. We don't start fishing 45 seconds, 60 seconds maybe, tops, catching a 5-pound bass. Now, if I would have done nothing else, we had already had it made with this guy. He was beside himself. He absolutely couldn't believe it. I said, well, that guaranteeing you in 1 hour, I guess we've already fulfilled that, so I could relax a little bit. I could drink a cup of coffee, and then we'll get back to fishing. He laughed, and we started fishing. Never left the causeway. We were working deeper, but we never worked any deeper than 17 feet, as I recall. Fish were all over that causeway. I mean, they were all over. He said we caught 60 bass. I never counted, but he said we caught 60 bass. And he kept a limit of fish, and it was the simplest thing in the world. A beginning structure fisherman could have got that job done. All because I was in the right place and doing the right thing, but I was on a structure. I had no contour map. I never had turned my meter on. We just started down there with those little lures, started catching fish right away. So he said, I've got some hip waders in the truck. He said, I like to go to my truck, get those waders. I like to get down in the water and shoot some great shots of all of these fish that he kept, And I said, well, you can shoot some shots of me if you want to. I said, but I want to shoot shots of you. Your readership believes you, and if I tell them you caught these fish, no. I want you to be holding your fish, and you tell the story, but I want it to be your picture. So I shot a whole bunch of pictures of him. So I woke up Sunday morning, couldn't wait to get to the newspaper, opened up, and then the sports page, 3/4 of the entire page of that sports section of the Peoria Star with me and Jack Harrisman at Wren Lake. And then he tells a story. And he couldn't have said it any better. I mean, it was like somebody that you hired to be your promo man. You know, he was so excited. And he had no idea that, and I told him after the catch, I said, listen, this is not the exception. This is the rule with people going about their fishing in the right way, knowing what they should be doing and doing it, going out and presenting your lures, doing your mapping, your interpretation, knowing the different lake types and so on and so forth. It's not that hard. I said, even a dummy like me could do it. Yeah, I spent 4 years in college, but I'm pretty average in every way. Except I found out how to catch a fish. I found out through this guy. Found out from the father of modern day fishing, Buck Perry. And I was so competitive in all things that all of a sudden my competitive nature took over when I found out about the truth about fishing. And I wanted to get great. Not to beat a guy, not to be the best fisherman in the world, but to beat the fish. My competition is with the fish. The bigger the lake, the tougher it is, the more I like it. My satisfaction comes from working it out, working that lake out, putting it in my hip pocket. I know where all the fish are. That kind of thing. And he took such an interest in me that I can't tell you. All of a sudden, he's having me to his home for dinner. On a Tuesday night, we went to do this clinic. He having me for dinner. You know, we just met. And I thought that's pretty nice. We go to dinner at his house, meet his family. And then we go on Tuesday night to do the show. And I was hoping to get 400 or 500 people. But the article was so good, I was hoping for more, but I thought, if we get 500, that'd be great. 300 would be okay too. So we walk into Bradley University and come up to the starting time. I looked out there, standing room only, 2,000 people. And there was a long, or a pretty wide center walkway up through the auditorium. And there were people sitting on the floor. Wasn't only standing room, it was sitting room only. Well, we found out later. Of course, I was thrilled. I was thrilled to death. It was one of the biggest crowds I'd ever had, and I was thrilled. It was all because of Jack Harrisman, all because of a stinking causeway on a big flatland reservoir. And we caught all those fish in just a matter of a few hours. And he looked at me like I was some sort of genius. It was really easy fishing that day. It wasn't anything hard about it. But we found out later that the fire marshal turned away 1,000 people at the door. So we had 2,000 people in a place, 1,000 people turned away. They estimated 1,000 people turned away. 3,000 people showed up because we caught some nice fish down at Wren Lake. And Jack Harrisman wrote about it. Now, he had been in the business for so long, he had so much respect in the business that people never doubted him. They believed every word he wrote. And of course they should. It was true. So I said, listen, here's what I'm going to do. Because we had to turn all those people away, I said, Jack, if you'll put it in the paper, you let them know that Don Dickson said, I'm coming. Next week, I'm going to hire out the hall. I'm going to do like we did this time, except it's not going to cost anybody any money to get in. It's free. I want to take care of those people that couldn't get in the door. Well, he said, I could do that. So I made arrangements with Bradley, and they agreed. And the next week, on the Sunday paper, here's another half page with more pictures from Jack Harrisman telling about how the clinic was completely overrun and the fire marshal turned all these people away. And I'm coming back to do one for free. We come back to do that clinic. There's another 2,000 people, and they said there's another 1,000 people turned away at the door that night. All from fishing a causeway without a depth finder, without a contour map, just starting to fish a causeway because I could see it and because I know what a causeway can do for you. The dam area will do the same thing for you. It'll give you two spots where you pretty much guarantee you're going to catch fish. And I could tell you 500 stories where the causeway or the dam saved my rear end, period. In big reservoirs. I could go fulfill my claim, take me to a reservoir, any reservoir within 1 hour would be catching fish. I could fulfill it just with those two structures 95% of the time. I don't need anything else. Okay, so with all that being said, I want to finish a little bit on Jack Ehresmann. I found out during our conversation and our continued relationship that he was writing for Fish and Facts, he was writing for Outdoor Life, he was writing for Fins and Feathers, he was writing for some national magazines. He wasn't just writing for the paper. And he was very well respected. So when he wrote something, and he was a terrific writer, when he wrote it down, it was beautiful, it was just right, you know, and he did more to promote Don Dickson over future things that we did together. He came to the Canada School. He wanted to know everything about what we were doing. He wanted to know everything about bucking. He wrote these beautiful, great stories. He wrote 4-part story in Fins and Feathers, you know, all on what we were doing, what Don Dickson and Tommy Francic were doing, and what Buck Perry had done in the past. And he became one of the greatest friends that we've ever had in this business. He's just a terrific guy. And I estimated that in all of his writings, in all of the different videos back in the day, and all the customers that came from Jack Ehresmann's writing, I can't even put a number on it. It's in the way into the tens of thousands of people know about this stuff because of Jack Ehresmann. And Jack Ehresmann found out it was true in one morning of fishing on a causeway at Rend Lake, Illinois. Now, that's just a little beginning on man-made structure. We're going to get into a lot of details about all of the different structures and give examples of each and every one, my favorite structures to fish. And I want to encourage everybody, like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate it, and we'll see you the next time.